Topic 4. Perpetrators of sexual violence. People with an intellectual disability are vulnerable to victimisation by anyone. Abusers can include significant others, acquaintances and strangers, but in most cases the offender is known to the person, as is the case for the majority of victims of sexual violence with or without a disability. The majority of offenders are male. However, women can be abusers too. Significant others can include family members, intimate partners, friends, support workers, or carers. Acquaintances can include co-residents, community members, bus or taxi drivers, contacts on social networking sites. Strangers can include someone they just met, for example at the bus stop or train station, or someone acting friendly. For this reason, people with intellectual disability may think of or describe the offender as their friend. Many perpetrators will go through a process of grooming someone to be vulnerable to abuse. Grooming is defined as a conscious, purposeful and carefully planned approach used by the offender to gain access to the person and gain the person's trust and compliance and maintain the person's secrecy to provide opportunities to abuse and reduce the likelihood of being reported or discovered. This process is thought to strengthen the offender's abusive pattern of behaviour, as it may be used as a means of justifying or denying their actions. The National Centre for Victims of Crime in the USA describes common grooming steps used by perpetrators of child sexual abuse. Some or all of these practices may be used in abuse of other vulnerable people, including people with intellectual disability. While these steps are described here as a linear process, in real life, perpetrators may use some or all of these behaviours at the same time, in a different order and/or over a short time, for example minutes or hours, or a longer period of time, such as weeks and months. Targeting the victim. Any vulnerable person may be a potential victim. Perpetrators may target victims with certain characteristics to facilitate the crime, such as a cognitive impairment. As discussed in Topic 1, a range of personal and social factors heighten the vulnerability of people with intellectual disability to sexual abuse. Perpetrators often exploit these factors, for example cognitive impairment and increased suggestibility, loneliness and a desire for social connection, poverty and lack of accommodation and or money for food, cigarettes, high visibility in the community and readiness to make contact with strangers. Gaining trust and access. Perpetrators may gain access to potential victims through care or service delivery environments, for example personal carer, support worker, co-resident or service user. Transport services, for example bus or taxi drivers, or in the community. Perpetrators may also gain trust and access through informal relationships, for example family member, friend, neighbour or acquaintance. In some cases, perpetrators may offer the victim special attention, gifts or treats to gain their friendship and trust. Filling a need or exploiting a need. Perpetrators may manipulate the relationship to appear they are the only one who can meet the victim's needs, including emotional needs for companionship and affection, material needs such as accommodation, money, food and transport, and personal care needs. Perpetrators may also exploit their victim's empathy and desire to be valued by suggesting their victim is the only one who can meet the perpetrator's needs. For example, a perpetrator may tell their victim they need them, or that the victim is the only one who understands them. Isolating and creating secrecy. Perpetrators may seek to take victims away from others who might witness abuse, for for example on outings or places on their own. Or they may restrict people's access to other relationships, for example families, friends, services. Perpetrators may seek to create a special connection with victims through personal contact, emails or text messages, and may instruct victims not to tell other people about their special relationship who will try to stop it. Perpetrators may tell victims they are worthless or undesirable and lucky to have their relationship with the perpetrator because no one else wants them, lowering inhibitions and sexualising the relationship. This can happen very quickly or take place over a period of time. In some cases, the perpetrator may initiate physical contact with the victim that is not overtly sexual at first. For example, pat on the knee or an arm around the shoulder. They may gradually introduce more sexualised touching by breaking down inhibitions and desensitising the victim. The perpetrator may seek to influence the victim's perception of the sexualised behaviour by telling them, "This is nice," or "what friends do." In other cases, the perpetrator may engage in sexually abusive practices during the delivery of intimate personal care, for example, toileting and showering. Some perpetrators will simply use force and coercion. Maintaining control. Perpetrators rely on the secrecy of the relationship to keep it going and ensure the victim does not reveal the abuse because of fear, lack of knowledge that something is wrong, lack of supportive relationships to seek help from, and/or communication difficulties. Perpetrators will exploit victims' fears, for example, by telling them that others will not believe them, that they are to blame for the abuse, or that they wanted the abuse to happen, you liked it. Where people consented to one activity, for example kissing, but not another, such as intercourse, they can be particularly vulnerable to feeling the abuse was their fault, and perpetrators may exploit this. Perpetrators may threaten victims to maintain secrecy, for example by saying that other people will be angry and blame them if they tell, that they will be punished for the abuse. Perpetrators may threaten physical violence to the victim, their significant others, or self-harm suicide by the perpetrator, or they may threaten a loss of needed resources, for example accommodation, or the loss of a valued relationship, for example contact with children or family members or friends.
Thank you for completing Topic 4, Perpetrators of Sexual Violence. Next, Topic 5 will look at responding to disclosure, guiding principles. But first, please return to the home page to complete the learning activity.